Hi everyone, I'm Todd Fischer, the host of the Cult Following podcast. Cult Following is a podcast that studies the personalities and common traits of cult leaders and their followers. Get the real story behind these infamous and oftentimes tragic cults from a new perspective through exhaustive research and from interviews with people that were there. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Life is a quest for logic and reason. It is a quest to find balance between science and faith. Life is a quest for knowledge and understanding. But most importantly, it's a quest for personal discovery. Whatever your quest, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Welcome to Quest. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Todd Fischer. I'm the founder of Metacortex, and I'm on a never-ending quest for knowledge. A quest is a search for something, and this podcast will show you how we know what we know through interviews with people that have incredible stories of dedication and perseverance. To me, curiosity is part of what makes us human, and there's still so much we don't know. I believe there's joy in discovery. It's what drives us. It's our quest. And with that, welcome to Season 4 of the Quest podcast. I hope you enjoy this next interview. Hi, Elise. Welcome back to the Quest podcast.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for having me.
Well,
Truly honored.
you might be my first three-timer on here.
Wow.
This is your third time. Every time you come on the show, we get into some deep conversations that last like 2 hours.
I'm guessing that is a compliment. If you want to converse and break things down and open it all up, I'm very, very grateful that you like speaking about the hard things sometimes, the deep things.
Well, I love when you come on the show. You know, so many of my episodes are just so topic based with a certain type of guest. And with you, we've talked about everything. We've talked about aliens, and we've talked about angels, and we've talked about spirituality and the paranormal, and we've gotten into like every topic. And you can get into it on all of those. That's what's amazing about you. Like you can literally have a conversation about anything. So for conversational guests, you're one of my favorites, and I'm always happy when you come back.
Wow. Thank you so much. I love speaking with you. I think that it's been a good dynamic range of topics, and it's usually makes my brain go, I'm excited about it. So,
and we're like this offline too, on social media. Like sometimes we get into some rabbit holes of conversations where we're sending voice messages back and forth, and I really appreciate our friendship and just kind of this chemistry we have back and forth from usually 2,000 miles away.
I know it's been years too. It's been wonderful.
Right, exactly, and so it's always good, and I love when we can give an audience a slice of kind of what we talk about all the time.
Yes, I agree. I think it's good. A lot of people don't dare to have these conversations, so if we can give them a little permission by having them ourselves, then why not?
For sure. I mean, that's part of healing the world is let's just start talking. Everyone needs to start communicating,
Yes.
And there's just too many walls and divides thrown up, and communication is key. I will just kind of throw in a little disclaimer at the beginning here. If there are any of my younger listeners, we might be getting into some intense intimacy topics today. So for those who might not want to hear this, then you might want to turn off the podcast now because this could very easily get R-rated today.
Yes, it probably will. In a very educational, good way, but also we don't totally restrict the way that we describe things. So some cause words will be said.
Sure, of course. So, I think the last couple of times you came on, you and your sister Electra, you've been kind of on your way out of the entertainment business for a long time and searching for the next thing you've wanted to do. And I've always been anxious to see what you want to do. And there's actually a lot of movement. And I want to just kind of jump into this at the beginning of this episode. So your sister Electra has launched a new wellness company. Do you want to talk about that? Because I know you're instructing or teaching in in some events coming up.
Yes. So she was managing a wellness center for a long time and decided that she wanted to start her own brand, wellness retreats and all wellness brand. And so she named it Amar. Amar means to love in Spanish. It also means eternal life in Arabic. And she loved that concept. So not that we have any attachment to that language, but we do speak Spanish, but we just love the meaning of it and the vibration of the word amar, and it sounds really good. And so yeah, she named it that, and she's creating a protocol for a healing method, and testing it out and playing with it. And she's been on a healing journey for many years, and we all have, and she's very intentional with it. So she's gone through some major transformations this year that have led her to step into her voice as a leader in wellness. And it's been beautiful to watch. And she's really just providing a platform for more healing and conversation, transformational healing. So yeah, the retreats, that we're just building retreats with different topics. The first one was on specifically introducing the Amar method, and a lot of breath work and intentional body work and intimacy sessions to unravel things that have not been unraveled in the people who are joining. So yeah, there's a lot of that, and it's really exciting. And we have a lot of things happening this year, and already pairing up with a lot of people. And I have been individually stepping into my own intimacy and sex coaching, mentoring, guiding, as I've been doing it for many years, but not really as a career. I was just kind of doing it on the side with my friends and family. And sometimes I would take on clients that were my photography clients that then became my intimacy clients because of the nature of our conversations and how I help them feel seen and unashamed. So yeah, so now I'm veering into this, and it's been so profound. My journey this year has been transformational in and of itself. I left a very long-term relationship with a partner who I loved very much, who I still love, because I did not have the intimacy that I craved for so long. And so I felt like a phony wanting to step into, guiding people into intimacy for many years when I couldn't step out of something that was not for me. So learning about that, and it was really hard to admit, and just becoming brave enough to do it, and letting go of the shame and guilt to say goodbye to a good friend who was that partner and who had given so much. We had given so much to the relationship for 16 years. And just admitting that a romantic partner is very different than a friend. And yeah, relationships take work, and intimacy goes away when you don't nurture it. But there were some foundational things there that I needed to own that were not there, were not happening. And now I'm free to explore this new career and guidance, and it's been very fun.
Sure. Yeah. It's exciting to see you and your sister both moving into these new businesses really simultaneously, and both are they I think they exist in the same universe, but they're also uniquely different types of things. And they complement each other, and they can stand alone. And I encourage everyone to go check out their websites. I'll try to make sure I put those in the show notes, and you can tell them at the end of the show here. But jumping off, like I'm looking at your website right now, and right at the top it says Deep Intimacy Guidance. How would you define the difference between just intimacy and deep intimacy? What's the difference there?
So I decided to go with deep intimacy because I like to step a little further into the things that people would consider maybe taboo in their lives. Intimacy it's it, like intimacy is it. But I like to push the envelope with people's need to admit their own desires and unravel the shame and the guilt they have for having them, because I'm not afraid at all to hear people's desires, no matter how dark they may seem or strange. My role in my tribe, in my friends group, in my family, even with my parents, I represent a safe place for everyone to come to and talk about what they deeply want to experience in an intimate level, in sexuality, in sensuality, in their intimate lives. And so I called it deep intimacy because it does feel like a push deeper into what you otherwise would consider an intimate conversation.
Right.
And I want to encourage that. I want to encourage people. I don't, it's interesting. Right now, I feel like Instagram is filled with coaches and pleasure coaches, sex coaches. Everybody's like, I'm a sex coach, I'm a pleasure coach. And I do think it's a revolution. It's like the pendulum swinging. It's kind of like in the 90s, all the yoga instructors, there's like thousands, not millions of yoga instructors. I feel like we're finally in that pleasure revolution. Women are claiming their pleasure. They're teaching other women to prioritize it so that we can teach men exactly what we want, so that men feel capable, so that we're actually in union instead of pretending to be in union. And it's happening. And I do have a little bit of a judgment in how it's unraveling, because not everybody is really a good guide in the space, but I am very appreciative that people are willing to step into a conversational space of guiding. So all conversations are good. I'm putting everything on the table.
Sure.
And that's where it's coming.
It's interesting sort of how cyclical things work in this world, because if we just kind of go back historically a little bit, if we go back a little over 50 years, the hippie counterculture had a sexual revolution.
Yes.
And there's an old saying that kids rebel against their parents. They don't like their parents' lifestyle, so they want to go a different direction, right? So if you think about the children of the 60s and their parents, and when they were kind of coming up, you had a very conservative, stiff generation. The bedroom was in the bedroom. It was never talked about. Everything was buttoned up. So of course, something was going to explode into this hippie counterculture and sexual revolution. And then you start to see the same thing happen again through the 70s and into the 80s as another generation starts to come around. And what's really odd about like the hippie generation is a lot of kids of the hippie generation didn't take on the lifestyle of their parents. They became doctors and attorneys and became buttoned up again, So this kind of thing happens generationally, that we see this kind of opening up. And I think you're right that we're back in a phase where people are opening up about their sexuality and living a different lifestyle. And I think the millennials today are understanding that, they're probably not going to own homes like their parents did. That kind of dream of that is always with an old generation, and they're trying to find their own way, having full-time jobs you retire from, jobs with benefits. These things are starting to leave us, leave the world,
to die off.
Yeah. So certainly they're carving their own path. I want to come back to something when you were talking about, communication. Why do you okay, so I agree. I think lovers need to communicate their desires, their wants, their needs, have that open conversation, can make things a lot funner, a lot better. Why do you think people don't talk about it? Or do you think people are shy? Why do you think people don't express their needs, even if they're uncomfortable in sex or intimacy, and not speak about it? What do you think it is? Because I think a lot of people are like that. Probably way more people than actually discuss it,
Yes. So when you first start a new relationship, you want to impress each other. And it's interesting because we want to impress them with our sexual skills, depending on how the relationship is starting, and the basis of how the nature of where those people are in their relationship to religion, God, their families' expectations of them, their culture. Those priorities will be different about wanting to impress, right? So, but you have that looming expectation of wanting to impress this new lover that you clearly have chemistry with, hopefully have chemistry with. Not just lying to yourself about it because they look good on paper. That happens a lot too.
Right.
Those are some of the conversations I'm always have to have. I'm like, okay, you're telling me you're interested in this person. You're telling me all the things they have and all the things they represent, but does it turn you on? Like, are you actually turned on around them? If you take all of that list away, like, these things are important, but if you just remove that, does it turn you on? And so I think people don't talk about it because they don't want to seem like freaks, right? And so then also women have mostly been taught to be desirable, not what they desire. So growing up, I was just told, just like, be a hot girl, be available, make sure you know how to suck a cock, make sure you know how to take it, make sure you like look good and are always like ready for them. But there was no training in like what turns me on. What do I have to pay attention to that actually will make me want to be motivated to do all those things? Because it was an exhausting performative life. I've lived mostly performing for men, and then building a lot of resentment and completely disconnecting myself from my genitals and from my heart, because my pussy was like, girl, like, you don't know what's good for me. What's going on? And so I'm like, okay, I am reconnecting my heart to my desires, to my voice, and I'm becoming brave enough to say, this is actually what I want to experience. And I don't want to pretend that this is not important for me, because I won't go out of my way to give you any pleasure as my lover unless you know exactly what I want to. So creating that safe space and actually putting that idea in everyone's minds. It's like, yo, we're all responsible to know ourselves and to be brave enough to communicate it with kindness and courage.
Yeah.
That's it. And we don't do it because of all those looming expectations to be the good religious person that is appropriate. The appropriateness wall. I feel like we all carry this like looming appropriateness wall that our parents gave us. Now, my parents fucked up so royally with me in a beautiful, blessed way, that they gave me all the permission to not be this appropriate person, this just proper, to keep it in the line. Like, no, I can say whatever I want to my mother or my dad, and they're all like, fuck yeah, and that is a huge blessing. But that was not the case for my ex-partner. There was a lot of huge expectations there that kept us very distant from being free. And so to answer your question, I think people don't do it because of family expectations, culture, things that they have put on themselves, and then wanting to impress the other and not seem inappropriate. Now, there are some people who have come closer to themselves in their self-exploration and have owned their desires in a way that is not this depraved, like perverted feeling inside. They don't feel ashamed or guilty about it. And so now it's more like they have integrated it, and it's this beautiful exploration of themselves, and it's not gross. Therefore, when they're playing it out or communicating them, it gives the receiving person of those desires so much permission to just be like, oh, I actually want this, and that's so much fun. And like even playing with taboo ideas, like you're just playing with ideas. You're just putting them on the table, playing, and then the game is over. It doesn't have to become anything about who you are, your identity. You know what I mean?
I also think sometimes people are afraid to discuss their needs or want to talk about trying new things or have fantasies because it might invite a judgment.
Yeah.
And I think some people it's unwanted that they're
Yes.
judged. Let me ask you a hard question. For people out there, and I'm sure there's someone like that listening, how do you tell the person you're in love with that they're a bad lover? How do you do that without completely insulting them,
Right. So I think telling them, being a bad lover is such a general term, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you say you're a bad lover, it just feels very like I'm just putting you in this big basket and just throwing you away. So instead, focus on detailed things that you can work through. Nobody's going to know your body, especially in the beginning, exactly, like the moment that you start hooking up with them. So the more honest you are as things are happening with like the little moments, okay, he's going down on you or you're going down on her, and it's not the best. Well, then you slow them down and you say, hey, I like it more like this. And if they're not picking up on it, then, there will be a moment that you will know, okay, this is clearly not happening and this is not a priority for them, or they're not receptive. And then you have to have an honest conversation with them if they're not really listening to you or care to change or give you the things that you want to experience. Now, if they're turned on by you, you have chemistry and they're there, most likely there's a willingness to want to provide that sense of like, I want to feel like a superhero. I want to be the source of your pleasure. I want to give you pleasure. I want to learn you. I want to learn your body and your timing, and it'll be fun to discover this. But some people are bad listeners and some people are bad lovers. So like you have to kind of go, it's not, I don't think it's fair to just put them all in one box and be like, you're a bad lover. You just tell them, hey, I like you to slow down here, or I like it when you move like this when you're inside of me, and you kind of guide them slowly through the steps that you're experiencing with them.
Sure. I want to ask something else. What about, is it wrong to fabricate your sexual performance? A girl faking an orgasm, that doesn't do a guy any good. Why do that?
Oh
That
no.
shouldn't happen, right?
Yes, absolutely not. I mean, it's very real. It like every woman, every young woman learns it as a defense mechanism
Mm-hmm.
to the sex for the sex they want to end. And not only that, but also for just to keep someone around feeling good. So it is that conditioning of I'm supposed to be desirable and they're supposed to feel like they're giving me pleasure and that they're a winner. But none of that. You're losing every time you fake an orgasm as a woman, you are losing trust in the masculine. You're losing trust because you are
Interesting.
telling yourself this person's not capable of really listening to my desires and like actually giving me pleasure, and I'm not even giving them a chance. So I'm just gonna fake this. This is gonna be over. They're gonna feel like a king, and I'm actually gonna feel like they're a loser. So
Yeah.
you're just killing the relationship as a woman, and you're giving them a chance.
And that's
So
a very, very common thing. And I think both men and women need to hear that. And I'm glad you're saying that right now.
it's so unhealthy. It doesn't serve anyone. It leaves the woman totally heartbroken, but she's the one doing it. But it is a conditioning of like make them feel like a winner. And it's
Yeah.
so shitty because they didn't win anything. They like you want to actually pleasure your woman and you're left thinking you did. And then it's so unfair when she leaves you and you have no idea why. And it's because she would never actually give you a chance. And she won't take responsibility for that. She'll just make you feel like a bad lover. And that's very unfair.
Right.
In that way, we do have, just like we have the word, we have the last word, we decide, oh yeah, you're the lover I want to continue having sex with because I'm inviting you into my body. So therefore I decide if we're gonna have sex or not. I also have the word to guide you, but that comes with empowering women to have a voice. And that's the pendulum swinging right now in society. Women are learning that they can say, that didn't turn me on. You don't turn me on. And I need to go find what does, or I need to tell you what does. And it just, it, it is a revolution of the feminine and the masculine learning how to not feel egotistical while they listen to like, oh shit, I have not been building the foundation right, or I have not been really pleasuring you, and I care deeply about your experience of me, instead of feeling like a winner when I'm not.
Right.
And then the woman feeling safe enough to say, okay, I lied, I faked orgasms, and okay, let's start from scratch, and this is what actually turns me on. And honestly, everyone is different, but if I'm gonna be honest, women want slower sex, especially in the beginning. Yes, a woman eventually will need like a heart pounding, really fun. We like, we need it. Like we don't go into these like very physical experiences. Men can like go fight and like do all these things. Women, we dance, but unless we're taking like jujitsu classes or something that is physical like that, we really like get it in the bedroom. And we need it. We need that hard physicality, but it can't start like that. It has to start very slow and gentle and loving and tender every time. And it needs to feel like a ravishing of the heart, so that our bodies want to be ravished like an animal. And
Sure.
it just takes gentleness. It takes like knocking the door, like, hello, I'm here, I brought flowers. And just all these gentle things that open a woman's heart and their
Sure.
body.
For sure. I can't remember if I sent you my latest book or not. I don't think I have. The Advanced Metatomics book. Did you get that from me?
No, I have
Okay.
not.
I've got to send that to you. You know,
Please.
this new series of books is much different than the first one I gave you, because this is more of an interpersonal book. It's an exploration of who you are as a human being. It's a 3-book series. Because the first book is called Physiological Attunement, and the kind of the nutshell version of this is that your soul is an operator controlling a mechanism, which is your body. That's the root of it all, right? And I
Right.
believe a lot of problems people have today is rooted in a mind-body disconnect. There's no
Yes.
communication going on. And when you have negative control of the mind or negative control of the body, you're going to have problems with things.
Yes.
So what it is, it's sort of step-by-step instructions on how to build your physical attunement such as some of the basics that some people don't understand. Some people don't really know how to breathe properly. Some people don't sleep enough. Some people don't get enough water. Some people don't know how to eat properly. So it goes through a lot of those basics to prepare you for the mental work in the second part of the book, which is beginning meditation, really beginning exploration of the mind and prayer and the things you want to do there, so, which sets you up for the other two books.
Which are?
And one of the things that I say in the book is that the body craves what it needs. And the operator needs to listen to that. Right?
Yes.
It's going to tell you everything you need. If you're deficient in something, you will be hungry for a certain thing, you know, and it can be anything. That crave can be sexual. That crave can be salt. You know, it can be like you want to eat a pickle for whatever reason. You don't know why, you know, and pregnant women get really odd cravings because their body's craving what it needs, you know, and you have to listen to it. And unfortunately, these days, people don't take the time to listen to what their body needs. And of course, we're on a topic of intimacy. That is an important part of the mechanism. The same thing with your emotions and your feelings. These are products of the mechanism, and the mind needs to interpret those. Yes. And that's what that's for. Because when you die, if you're a person that believes in the idea of a soul and that soul leaves you, it's leaving with experiences, not so much anything else, you know, the pain or the happiness or the love or the other things, which are all products of the mechanism, which are left behind, you know? So that's sort of the root of it. I don't want to go into too much.
I love it.
This is your episode, but
no, this is lovely. I was just talking about this with a friend last night about the foundations of health and how that is the root of all intimacy. The intimacy that you carry with yourself. Like, how deeply intimate are you with a conversation between, like you're calling it, the operator and the body? Mm-hmm. We have disconnected ourselves so deeply that we're like operating from our head. And our bodies are just screaming alarms, you know, from body weight to
it is. It's exactly. I love that you said that about alarms, because I talk about that in the book. It's lighting up with signals constantly, telling you what to do.
All day long. And it gets worse the more the more you ignore the alarms, then the more chronic, bigger diseases come to our body or like develop in our body, because you are ignoring little simple alarms for a long time. I mean, it begins with like getting a sty or a throat ache, and then you're ignoring it or whatever, like little things that are just like you're not wanting to see, you're not wanting to speak about something. Mm-hmm. And it all comes from deep emotions that are being ignored. And I love that saying, the body knows what it needs. The body
craves. I like the term crave. Your body craves what it needs.
I need to use that. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm going to come back to this in a little while, but I wanted to talk about the effects of pornography on intimacy, because
let's get into it.
Just the other day, you made a post about pornography, you know, addiction to pornography, probably more particularly than just casual watchers of it, but people that are addicted to it, which is all too common these days. So many people are. I didn't know so many just friends of mine were addicted to pornography. So I was like, oh, I've got to unload my thoughts on Elise, and I was prepared to send you like 26 voice messages like I normally do, which you would have loved. But I was like, you know what? Yes. I'm going to ask her to come on the podcast, and I'll just save all this for that, because I have a take on it too. And I think there's kind of a, it's weird because at least me, I'm a tiny bit older than you. And I remember, my generation, the VHS generation was the first generation to really heavily start to consume porn, because you went to video stores and there were X-rated sections of video stores, right? Yes. Like, this was pre-internet where you could just go to Pornhub or something, but there you could rent pornographic videos. This was becoming a very common thing. Prior to that, in the 70s and the 60s, there were stag films that maybe people would acquire for bachelor parties, things like that. And there were certainly like XXX theaters you could go to, right? But it became something for home use in the 80s with the video store, and it's only gotten worse with the internet. And now porn is everywhere. It's virtually a Google search away from something, and even if you're not looking for it, it'll show up in a search engine, And so it's everywhere, around more than ever before. And I think more people are using it more than ever before.
It's shaping our sex education. It has shaped an entire generation's sexual education, which again is a pendulum swinging, Todd. Like, it's happening naturally and organically because of our desire and our repression of sexual information.
Sure.
Sure.
So talk for a minute about how an addiction to pornography affects the relationship.
So I'm gonna talk about the way that it affected mine.
Okay.
So I was addicted to it. I'm not addicted to it like, you know, I just felt unmet, and I didn't know how to communicate my desires in a way that my ex-lover would listen. And I just revert to turning myself on with porn. And I learned a lot of things from porn that were valuable, like some of the confidence things and some of the playful, dirtier, fun things, like actually like getting used to seeing someone naked and like seeing all the things that our bodies can do and the attitudes and the, yes, performative stuff, but also like I learned a lot about from porn that I am appreciative of. But it started so some of the research that I learned is that it disconnects the way that, okay, when you are feeling turned on, like as turned on as porn can make us feel, you are activating these feelings in your body and releasing all these hormones of sexual pleasure, that because you don't have anybody that you're smelling, touching, and interacting with physically, you are disconnecting the ability to actually get turned on physically to that. So you just get this blue light, kind of flat, disconnected. You're not even interacting with those people that you're watching. And then that's basically what the neural pathways in your brain connect about your sexual turn on. So that's a huge reason why it can really disrupt your relationship. So early on in my long-term relationship, I was feeling very unmet. I did not know how to communicate my needs, or when I did, they weren't received. Therefore, on my free time, I would watch porn, and that's kind of how I got off every time. And I found myself needing more and more intense porn, because just like simple two people having sex was not turning me on. Now, I did want to explore deeper things. I wanted to explore S&M. I wanted to explore all these fun things that were not being, I was not being explored. I was not exploring with my partner. Therefore, I was learning them from porn sites, and they were fun. But again, it created I needed more, and I needed more and more and more.
Well, that's the addiction, right?
Yes.
The addiction. It's
more
unlocking the reward center of your brain. And it's like any addiction. I got to take a little bit more of it. Got to do it a little more often,
And it was
that's dangerous.
I mean, I could spend hours watching it, and then it was more intense. And then it was over, and I was like, oh my God, that was so dark. Like, I just got off to something so dark that probably was not consensual. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is disrupting me. And then I can't really connect with my lover at all about what it is that I want to be feeling. And the reality is that if I was in that scene that I was watching and those things were happening to me, I would not be getting off. That would be too fucking intense for me. Right. But my brain was getting off, and my body was getting off on the idea of these really intense things happening to those people. And it was just like, that is not what really pleasurable sex and lovemaking is. Yeah. Like, when I feel the most is when things are super gentle, you know?
Well, back to the operator mechanism thing, okay? All that information you're taking in from the video is just becoming a product of what the operator sees. It's all happening here. And it's just making a command to the body to get off. Right. The mechanism isn't experiencing anything. And that's exactly the opposite of what the intimacy is supposed to be, right? Exactly. And where I was going to take this to was, what I wanted to tell you about was, one of the things that I think is really fascinating is, great intimacy with a partner during sex, it uses all of you. And you touched on just a couple of little things, right? But you have to think about it for a moment, right? You see someone for the first time, see them take their clothes off for the first time. There's an excitement to that, right? Mm-hmm. To see that girl's breast for the first time, there's an excitement to that, right? So you're visually seeing things. You're hearing sounds. You're smelling things, some pleasant, some not maybe, but you're smelling things, right? You taste things. You're using all of you. There's a touch, right? Skin on skin contact. There's heat, there's softness, there's pressure. There's all of these things that the mechanism is built for. Yes. And that's what makes it incredible. And when you go to porn, you're fast forwarding through all that. I don't care about that. I don't want to see the part where none of those clothes off. I don't want to see. I just want to get to this part. Okay, well, there's some penetration. That's fine. But no, let's go to the other side. We're there. That's what they wanted to see. They're fast forwarding past all of that good stuff that the mechanism craves and what sex was built for.
And how it gets you ready for it. How it gets your body ready for it. And you just are demanding really quick orgasm out of your genitals, bypassing this entire readiness foreplay that your body needs for that space to actually for it to be ready for it. And it's such a disservice. We're just so desperate for pleasure because we've been deprived of it. And so people, especially teenagers, you know, their hormones are raging. They want more answers. They want education. And like, you know, they're rebelling already against needing to become their own voice. And so like you put porn in front of them and their desperate need to become themselves and find their identity. And all of a sudden it's a porn addiction and it's all they want to be a part of. I feel like it's going to be this revolution when the younger generation becomes, sorry, my dog is getting up, he's walking. It'll be a revolution when the younger generation actually decides that they are okay without it, you know?
Yeah. And I think always, though, regardless of where we're at in these cyclical generations, the body is always going to crave what it needs. It's always done the same thing all the time. And it will always be there. It was interesting, you know, I produce a podcast for a priest friend of mine, and the karate priest, because he's an Air Force chaplain, he's a priest in the Catholic Church, and he's a master martial artist. So he's a very unique character.
Wow, dynamic.
And so we talk about these great topics, and he used the term for me that communion uses all of you. So when you take communion, he said, what's so beautiful about communion and why it's such a powerful experience is because it uses all of you. And I said, explain that to me, Father Dan. And he goes, well, you're in this beautiful facility. There's beautiful music or beautiful singing. You're smelling incense. You're tasting a wafer. You're tasting wine. You have this overall experience that uses all of you. And that's what Christ wanted, to use all of you. You know, there's definitely a reason to use all of what the mechanism has to offer. So, you know, communion is a little different than what we're talking about with sex, but I love the term using all of you. And when you can use all of you, you're going to have the most magnificent experience you can have.
Yes. And the return to that purity can only happen if you can look at all that is coming up for you. So I think that, you know, some of the confusion in religion, or people who are feeling so disconnected from the concept of even exploring sex in an open way, is that the fear that they cannot trust themselves and their desires, that there's this temptation for darkness that will deviate them completely out of the light. And I found the opposite is true. When you look at what you would consider your demons, you take them out to play, you put them on the table, you talk to them, you find out what it is that you want to explore and look at, then they're not demons anymore. They're just things you want to look at and explore. So and then they just lose their power. They lose their power. I read once, we're all just looking for people whose demons can take hours out to play. And I've experienced that several times in my life, and I'm very grateful for the permission I have received to understand that so well, because anytime that I have actually dared to look at the things that I was feeling a little guilty or ashamed for and really look at it without shame, they lost all their power. All the things that I thought I was perverted for, nothing. I don't even need them anymore. It was like a checklist, boom, boom, you know. But the more you repress it, the darker it becomes, because you feel so shitty about yourself. You feel so sick for wanting to experience it, that then it becomes even a bigger sickness. And it's this thing. It's like a zit that you won't pop. It's like this infection that you're trying to cover instead of heal. And so I guess this new endeavor of mine is just really to be a voice in the community, in the world, to like just create more conversations about how to enliven and enlighten what we would consider dark desires, exploration of all of those things, so that they are these friends of yours instead of things that are taken away from you.
I want to go back for 1 second to, you know, when you admitted that you watched porn. That's not something you hear a lot of females admit to. And at least when I was growing up, it was mostly males that were watching porn. And if there were females watching it, they were definitely keeping it a big, big secret. I was never a fan of porn. You know, I remember friends of mine, you know, renting porns, and I just thought it was silly and it was just dumb. And I didn't care about it. But I used to joke with people and I said, if there was like a James Bond movie that was like action and adventure and big budget, but James Bond's sex scene was like a real sex scene, I would love that. That would be amazing to
Yes.
watch
Well,
that
that's
movie.
what women really want. I mean, women want the context, right? That's what really excites us. All the behind the potential situational story that really is the backbone of getting off.
Yeah.
Porn is really disappointing for women. So disappointing. But when you're in that time of the month when you're like super horny and like you haven't prioritized yourself and like you watch porn, it can just get you off. It's really irresponsible, but really it does the trick. And it's just not, it's like a freaking band-aid to something that won't heal underneath,
Let me ask you this. Is porn a better solution than Tinder dating? Where do you stand on online dating?
I think that a lot of people have found themselves through those sites, through those apps. Really good relationships have come out of it. Again, it's a pendulum swinging. So there's a huge amount of people who are using it in a way that does not serve them, just like they're using porn. An easy way of accessing the idea of intimacy without actual intimacy. And so I don't think that either porn or Tinder is better. I think that your desires are showing you where you are. And if you are in a place where you are bulldozing yourself in a painful manner, in an abusive manner, in a way that you're not really listening and being gentle and like really tapping into what you actually need. It's kind of like people that make themselves work out so much and they bypass all the signals that they need to slow down. There's a lot of that. And it feels like, the pursuit of sex is like that. The pursuit of pleasure is like that. So it's like, it's just a disconnection from like, just like having a cleaner, more sensitive receptor to your needs and your desires. And so your desires are showing you where you are, not who you are, where you are. And so if you just listen for a little while, then it will show you, oh, okay, I'm craving this. Okay, for example, let's just take it out of sex, but like, okay, you're craving a lot of like unhealthy things to eat. Let's just say you're like, oh, I just want all the fucking like donuts and all the hot chocolate and all the sugar and all the fluffy, big, delicious things that are just gonna it's gonna taste so good, even though they're gonna make me feel really bad and really dense and make me gain weight and not be on my goal and not feel that vital. But even if you don't go all the way, you still know that craving all those things are not the healthiest for you. Now, the more you make decisions that are low vibrational, the less you have the ability to think about whether you are actually affected unhealthily or not. So we can't sometimes if you're making a lot of low vibrational decisions and unhealthy decisions, you are just basically getting more sick and unable to make better decisions.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that's
right.
That's the situation.
Generally speaking, are you for or against social media dating, like Tinder and Bumble and all of those sites? Do you think they?
Oh my God, I don't know. I think that I've never tried them. I've looked at my friends' accounts and played with them while they were going through them, but I've never actually like been in them. So for me, like meeting people that way has never been a priority. I've never needed to do it. I like meeting people kind of like organically, but again, like for example, you and I, like we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for an online platform. And so there is a recognition that there is now we have access to people worldwide. And so that's beautiful. I love that. I love that you can go to a city and all of a sudden see the available people, single people who want to meet, and hopefully they're healthy. But you bypass a lot of the like awkwardness of like, who's in this bar that is single and wants to talk to me. You can do it through the app. That is a beautiful thing. I love that opportunity. And then again, it shows you the amount of unhealthy behavior that people are living through in their pendulum swinging of awareness of themselves. And so we can't blame the app. Just like our need to explore sexually and want to film ourselves having sex and show it, which is porn, is not really the bad guy. Is basically porn and dating apps are just showing us the reflection of where we are as a society in our depraved, unhealthy lack of acceptance of ourselves.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I'm not against it. I want to say I'm against the shaming of ourselves.
That's good. Well, what I love about what you've built, this new business that you're going to do is that you lead by example for sure. You're
I'm
definitely
trying.
talking based on your experiences. But what I want to ask you, just to be vulnerable for a minute, Elise,
Please.
what are you still looking for?
Whew. More intimacy.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
little more. Okay.
Yeah, always. Always more, deeper intimacy.
Is there a limit?
I don't know if there's a limit. I think intimacy just means, uh, for me, it means daring to unravel yourself and be seen,
Hmm.
and accept yourself so radically that the people around you have no other choice but to do the same with themselves when they're around you. Just like they come right in front of you, and they see you so exposed, so courageous. It's almost like, yes, you are the woman, you have the grandmother wisdom, but you also are like a little baby. Like you are like, you don't give a fuck. You are just this unedited version of yourself, but that has so much self-acceptance and so much heart that it is almost like not naive, but you know, unedited, like a child, and but also very responsible and wise, like a grandmother would. And so I aspire to create deeper intimacy with myself and accept myself so radically in my moments, in my desire, in my explorations, that anybody that comes my way can feel that safety with me. And that's my goal. That's so yeah, like what am I looking for? Deeper intimacy with myself and those who I come across.
And that's a great way to wrap up this episode for sure. I don't know if there's a limit to how deep intimacy can go, but it's going to be fun to look for it.
Yes, yes. I encourage you to continue looking for it, and everybody listening. I hope that this is a lot of permission, whatever that may be. I would say that it starts with journaling a lot. When I read my journals from all of last year and a little bit of the year before, I was me building courage to step into the things that I was very afraid to own. And it really helped. When you write down what you really want, you can't lie to yourself about it. When you read back on it, you're like, oh shit, I wrote that. I wrote that. And it feels like a sibling telling you what they want. And you're like, well, now we can't unsee this. Now we have to do something about it. So
Sure.
write down what you want and just let yourself be free,
Yeah, just to take a few minutes here at the end, with your business, how does it work? Is it just consulting? Is it people call you and talk for an hour? Are you having classes? Tell me what you're doing in your business.
Thank you for asking. So yeah, so all of the above. So I am offering couples therapy and singles therapy, just like one-on-ones with people. And I help people reclaim and find their words and find their eros. So however disconnected they are from their own sensuality and sexuality, I help them kind of come back to themselves. So those are single sessions. And I also help couples with conflict resolution through building intimacy and unraveling what is clearly not working in their communication styles. And I'm also producing retreats and classes, single day classes, in my city here in Austin, Texas. Yoga studios and dance studios will be hosting this class. It's called Reclaiming Your Eros, and it's about that. So it's mostly geared to women. These classes are for women. I'm still figuring out how we're going to build one with men to help them kind of create polarity. So the importance between like what does a man need to feel to really feel like their feminine counterpart actually is in their feminine, and they can come together magnetized and have a powerful intimate relationship and moments. So anyway, so the classes will be about reminding women of their actual responsibility to be in their feminine, so that the masculine partner can be triggered into their masculine, instead of trying to be the mother of the masculine and boss them around and like, you're not enough, you're not doing the things that I want you to do. So the class will be more about how do you focus on yourself as a woman and what taps you into that sexiness that then will encourage your partner to be like, fuck, I'm gonna step up to this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, for like one-on-one consulting, do people have to be in Austin, or can you do it virtually? Can anybody?
Virtually, actually. If you go to my website, eliseavellan.com, you can see the options there to book. Still figuring out the calendar situation and all the things, but right now there's a way of doing it and booking it, and it's pretty easy. There's a questionnaire, and I just want to get to know you a little bit, and yeah, you can book a single session with me and kind of unravel. So the sessions that I'm hosting now are pretty profound, just people unraveling what they wanted to talk about for a long time, and it's pretty amazing what they get to learn about themselves. What I keep hearing from my clients, which I spoke about today, was that I make them feel like they go through a great unshaming. It's inspiring a podcast, actually, so we'll see. I think I'm producing, but yeah, so it's an unshaming of the person that I'm working with all the things that they've experienced, all the desires, and then they have the courage to actually speak about it with more confidence and no guilt and shame towards their lover. So that confidence makes their lover less hesitant to listen, because when you're like, I don't want to say pussyfooting, but yeah, pussyfooting around a topic, you don't give any confidence to the person receiving you, and they're just like, this is weird. You're acting weird about this. Instead, I'm like, this is what I want. Can we explore it? And then people are like, whoa, that's sexy. Confidence is you owning your shit and not pretending to. So I'm helping people unshame themselves so that they can take their steps more confidently.
Of course. Well, that's great. Everything you built here is just amazing. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and let's do it again.
Whenever you want, Todd. Thank you so much for hosting me.
All right. Thanks for coming out today, Elise. We'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. This podcast is produced by Todd Fischer and Anthony Smith and is distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Information and opinions stated in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Please be sure and visit the official website for Metacortex Publishing at metacortexpublishing.com, or find us on social media for other unique content.